The year was 2345, and Earth stood at a turning point in history. For centuries, humans had dreamed of joining the greater galactic community. They had imagined meeting alien species, exchanging knowledge, and proving that humanity was not alone. Now that dream had become reality. After years of struggle, debate, and diplomacy, Earth had been granted a seat in the Galactic Council, the ruling body that governed thousands of civilizations. It was a proud moment. All across Earth, cities celebrated. People filled the streets waving banners. News networks broadcast live images from the Council's central station, a massive star-shaped structure orbiting a neutral world in the heart of Council space. This was the place where laws were debated, treaties were signed, and conflicts were judged. Humanity had finally earned a place among the stars. At the center of it all stood President Elias Monroe, the leader chosen to represent Earth. Monroe was a tall man with gray streaks in his hair, but his eyes were sharp and full of energy. For months he had argued with the most powerful alien empires, demanding equal rights for humanity. Some saw him as bold, others as reckless, but he had won Earth's seat. Today he was to sign the treaty that made Earth an official council member. The chamber was grand, with ceilings so high they disappeared into light. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in curved rows, their colors, shapes, and forms showing the diversity of the galaxy. Some had smooth scales that reflected the glow of the chamber lights. Others had feathery crests or glowing eyes. A few floated in hovering seats, their bodies too fragile for gravity. For a human, it was overwhelming yet inspiring. President Monroe stood on the central platform. Behind him stood Earth's delegation, including military officers, scientists, and diplomats. Among them was Captain Aria Vance, commander of Earth's flagship Resolute. She had been chosen to guard the president, not only because of her skill, but also because of what she represented, Earth's rising strength in space. A voice echoed across the chamber, translated into dozens of languages by hidden systems. Let all gathered here witness the joining of a new member to our council.
May unity strengthen us all. Applause filled the hall.
Hands, claws, and tentacles clapped or made gestures of welcome. President Monroe stepped forward, ready to place his signature on the treaty. His voice carried firm and clear. On behalf of the people of Earth, I accept the responsibilities and privileges of this council. Humanity will stand with the galaxy, and the galaxy will stand with humanity. The moment was historic. Every human on Earth watching the broadcast felt their hearts swell with pride. Humanity had risen from a single world to a galactic stage. It should have been a day of joy, but then it happened. Without warning, a sharp beam of blue light cut across the chamber. It struck Monroe in the chest. The sound was almost like a whisper, but its effect was thunderous. The president staggered, his eyes wide in shock. For a heartbeat, silence fell. Then Monroe collapsed to the floor. The chamber erupted in chaos. Cries, alarms, and panic filled the air. Delegates scrambled for safety. Guards raised their weapons. Captain Aria Vance rushed forward, kneeling beside Monroe. His chest had been burned through by the energy shot. His eyes met hers for a second, then dimmed. "Sniper!" a guard shouted. "Find the shooter!" Aria looked up. Her training kicked in, and her eyes scanned the chamber's balconies. She spotted movement, a shadow darting between pillars. But before she could act, another flash of light blazed. This time it struck one of the alien guards, dropping them instantly. Council guards fired back, their weapons releasing bright pulses of energy. The figure leapt into the air, a blur of motion, and disappeared into a side tunnel. The assassin was gone. Monroe lay still. His heart no longer beat. The leader of Earth, the man who had brought humanity into the council, had been murdered before the eyes of the galaxy. In the hours that followed, the council chamber was locked down. Delegates argued, shouting across the room in dozens of languages. Some demanded answers. Others urged calm. Many insisted it was the act of a lone extremist. Aria stood silently near Monroe's body, her fists clenched. She replayed the moment in her mind. The assassin's weapon had been no ordinary gun. It was a precision energy rifle, the kind only issued to council security forces or the militaries of the oldest empires. It was not something an ordinary criminal could carry into the most guarded chamber in the galaxy. The official statement was quick. A council speaker appeared before the press, their insect-like mandibles clicking. The assassin was identified as a rogue extremist acting alone. They will be hunted down. We ask Earth to remain calm and trust in the council's justice. But Arya did not believe it. Her instincts told her something was wrong. The assassin's escape had been too easy. The shot had been too precise. And most of all, the Council's explanation came too fast, as if it had been prepared before the attack. Earth's delegation was placed under protection and escorted back to their quarters. But to Arya, it did not feel like protection. It felt like containment. Back on Earth, grief spread like wildfire. News of Monroe's death struck the planet hard. He had been more than a president. He was a symbol of humanity's place among the stars. People wept in the streets. Flags were lowered. Vigils burned through the night. Yet beneath the sorrow, anger brewed. Citizens demanded to know who had killed their leader and why. Military leaders called for answers. Political voices argued that Earth must not bow to intimidation. Humanity had worked too hard to reach the stars, only to be silenced now. Arya watched the news feeds from her quarters on the council station. She felt the same anger. Her hand brushed the metal pinned to her uniform, a reminder of her oath to protect her people. She had failed Monroe, but she would not fail Earth. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Darius Cole, spoke quietly. They expect us to stay quiet, to accept their story. But you saw the weapon. That wasn't black market, Arya nodded. No, someone powerful wanted him dead, and they want us to believe it was random. Darius looked uneasy. If we push too hard, the council could turn on us. We're still new here. Arya's voice was firm. Then we'll do what humanity has always done. We'll search for the truth ourselves. And if they think we'll stay silent, they don't know humans at all. Days turned into weeks. The council announced that the assassin had been killed during pursuit. No body was shown, no proof provided. Case closed, they said. But evidence began to surface in hidden corners. Encrypted communications intercepted by Earth's intelligence officers hinted at strange activity before the assassination. Supplies of council-grade weapons had gone missing. Certain powerful factions had argued against humanity's membership more fiercely than others, and some seemed almost pleased by Monroe's death. Arya gathered the fragments, piecing them together like a puzzle. The picture that formed was troubling. This was no act of a lone extremist. This was a calculated strike. The question was, who had ordered it? One evening, Arya stood at the window of her quarters, staring at the stars beyond the council station. She thought about Monroe, about the pride on his face as he signed the treaty, and about the sudden blue flash that ended it all. "Captain," Darius said behind her, "orders from Earth. We are to return home immediately. The council insisted it's for our safety." Arya's jaw tightened. Our safety, or their silence. She knew what this meant. The council wanted humanity to leave quietly, to grieve at home, and to stop asking questions. But deep inside, a fire was burning. Humanity had been struck. Their leader had been stolen. And though the council spoke of peace, Arya knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Humanity would not remain silent forever. The galaxy had just made its first mistake. The shuttle carrying Earth's delegation touched down on the surface of Earth 3 weeks after President Monroe's assassination. The world that had once been alive with celebration now felt heavy with grief. Streets were filled with black banners, and portraits of Monroe glowed on giant digital billboards. His face looked down at his people like a silent guardian, reminding them of what was lost. Captain Arya Vance stepped out of the shuttle with her team. The cool air of Earth wrapped around her, but it did not bring comfort. For her, the planet no longer felt safe. She had seen too much. She had felt the lie behind the council's words. The lone extremist story repeated by alien officials echoed in her ears, but every part of her being told her it was false. At the military airbase, she was met by Earth's Defense Council, a group of generals and advisors. They greeted her with grim expressions, their voices low and serious. "Captain Vance," one of the generals said, "you are ordered to report every detail." "Leave nothing out," Arya did as told. She described the flash of the energy beam, the assassin's movements, the advanced rifle. She explained how the assassin had escaped through tunnels that only council security should have known about. She added her suspicion that the council's story had been prepared in advance. When she finished, silence filled the room. The generals exchanged dark looks. Finally, one of them spoke. "Captain, you are not the only one who doubts the council's words. Intelligence officers have been digging since the attack. They found strange communications between some of the older alien empires. It looks like Monroe's death was not random." Arya's heart tightened. She had expected this, but hearing it confirmed sent a chill through her. "Do we know who?" she asked. "Not yet," the general replied. "But the signs point to a coalition of powers." They feared what Monroe was trying to change. He wanted reforms, equal rights, fair trade, limits on the Council's oldest empires. His vision was dangerous to them. Dangerous to them, but hope for humanity. Arya clenched her fists. Then this was murder by design. And if they think we will forget, they do not know us. Across Earth, whispers grew louder. Citizens held vigils, but they also held protests. People wanted justice. Rumors spread, rumors of betrayal, of shadowy deals, of powerful aliens who had silenced Monroe before he could change the galaxy. Some humans begged for peace, afraid that challenging the Council would bring destruction. Others called for strength. "If they strike us in the heart," one speaker said during a broadcast, "we cannot bow our heads. We must stand, or we will forever kneel." The tension reached every corner of Earth. The government tried to calm the people, but anger was a rising tide. Meanwhile, Captain Arya was given a new mission, one that was not to be spoken of outside secret halls. She was to investigate quietly, not through the Council, but through Earth's own channels. Her ship, the Resolute, was prepared in silence. Crews loaded supplies without announcement. The engines were checked twice, then 3 times. Officially, the ship was going on a training patrol. Unofficially, it was hunting for answers. The journey began at the edge of human space, near a system known for trade with alien merchants. It was a busy place full of ships from dozens of species. Arya stepped onto a crowded station, her eyes scanning for her contact. She met him in a dim corner of a cargo bay. He was not human. He was a Tyreen, a thin alien with pale skin and 4 dark eyes. The Tyreen were known for gathering secrets and selling them to those who could pay. "You humans make noise," the Tyreen whispered, his voice like wind through glass. "Your leader dies and you scream. Others watch and laugh. But I listen, and I hear things." Arya kept her voice steady. "Then speak. What did you hear?" The Tyreen leaned closer. "Weapons. Council weapons. They were stolen before your leader died, not by thieves, by soldiers. Soldiers of empires old and proud. They gave the weapons to a hand trained well. The shot was not chance. It was planned." "Which empires?" Arya pressed. The alien's 4 eyes flickered nervously. "To name them is dangerous, but I will say this. They sit on the high seats of the Council. They feared your leader's voice. They silenced him, and now they warn you to stay silent or you will join him in silence forever." Before Arya could ask more, the Tyreen slipped into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as he had appeared. Back on the Resolute, Arya gathered her officers. Lieutenant Darius Cole stood by her side, his expression grim. "So it's true," he said after hearing her report. "It wasn't one alien acting alone. It was the Council's own giants," Arya nodded. "And they expect us to obey. To hide at home broken." The ship's chief engineer, a woman named Kira Holt, slammed her fist on the table. "Then they don't know humans. We don't break. We don't hide." Darius looked uneasy. "But we are still new out here. Our fleets are smaller, our colonies fewer. If we strike too soon, we may not survive." Arya's eyes narrowed. "I don't speak of striking yet. I speak of truth. We must gather proof. When the galaxy sees who killed Monroe, their power will crumble. And when that day comes, Earth will not be alone." Weeks passed as the Resolute moved through space. Arya and her crew hunted for clues, speaking with traders, smugglers, and even defectors from alien militaries. Slowly, a pattern emerged. They found coded transmissions linking 3 powerful empires. These empires had long ruled the Council, shaping its laws for their own benefit. They controlled trade routes, demanded tribute, and silenced opposition. Monroe's reforms would have weakened them. His assassination protected their dominance. One night, as the Resolute drifted in the quiet of deep space, Arya stood alone on the bridge. The stars stretched out like a sea of light. She thought of Monroe, of his words about fairness and unity. His dream had been shattered by greed and fear. But dreams, she reminded herself, do not die so easily. Humans carry them forward. Humans fight for them. She turned to her crew the next morning. "We know who is behind this. We will find more proof. And when the time comes, Earth will act. Let the Council think we are grieving and weak. They will not see what is coming." Back on Earth, the situation grew more tense. The Council continued to send messages urging patience and warning against reckless action. They claimed to be investigating, but no progress was shown. To many humans, it felt like stalling. In secret, Earth's Defense Council began preparing. Warships were upgraded, factories produced new weapons, colonies trained militias. Humanity did not declare war, but the silence of preparation spread across their worlds. Arya's findings were sent back to Earth, carefully hidden in encrypted codes. The evidence was not yet complete, but it was enough to show the direction of guilt. The truth was spreading. Quietly, slowly, like fire hidden under ash. Then one night aboard the Resolute, Arya received a warning. A small probe appeared near the ship, broadcasting a message in broken human language. Human captain, beware, you dig too deep. The council watches. They do not forgive. You will be silenced as your leader was silenced. The probe exploded before it could be captured. Darius stared at the empty space where it had been. They know what we're doing. They're watching us, Arya's voice was hard. Good, let them watch. Let them fear, because if they strike again, we will be ready. The galaxy had always seen humans as newcomers, as children stepping into a world of giants, but with each whisper of truth uncovered, with each threat endured, humanity's spirit only grew sharper. They had been struck once. They would not allow it again. The stars above Earth shone quietly, as if the universe itself was calm. But on the ground, humanity was not calm. It was restless. Since President Monroe's assassination, weeks had turned into months. The official investigation by the Galactic Council had ended quickly, with the assassin blamed as a lone extremist. But Earth no longer trusted the Council's words. Secret evidence gathered by Captain Arya Vance and her crew of the Resolute had pointed to something darker. 3 ancient empires, working together to silence Monroe before he could change the balance of power. The truth had not yet been shared with the galaxy. It was not complete, but it was enough to stir Earth's leaders into action. At a hidden underground chamber beneath Geneva, the Defense Council of Earth gathered. Generals, scientists, and political leaders sat around a long table made of black glass. Holographic screens floated above them, showing star maps and fleet reports. General Soren, a stern man with deep lines on his face, spoke first. The Council believes we are mourning. They think we will return to silence. They are wrong. Humanity does not forget. Humanity prepares, another voice spoke, softer but sharp. It was Admiral Vega, commander of Earth's growing space fleet. We cannot declare war yet, not without proof strong enough to sway other species, but we must be ready for war when it comes. The room fell into silence as the leaders studied the glowing map of human colonies. Earth was young compared to the great empires. Only a few dozen colonies stretched across nearby star systems, and their fleets were small compared to the massive armadas of alien powers. Yet humanity had one advantage: adaptability. Their ships were designed differently, with modular technology that allowed upgrades faster than most alien fleets. Their commanders used tactics that mixed old human strategies with new ones inspired by space combat. Where other species followed rigid traditions, humans improvised. And now, their greatest weapon was not yet ships or guns, it was determination. Captain Arya Vance stood in the chamber, wearing her navy blue uniform. She had returned from the Resolute with the evidence she had gathered. Her eyes moved across the room, meeting the gaze of the generals. We cannot wait for justice to come from the Council, she said firmly. They will never punish their own leaders. We must seek truth ourselves. But while we search, we must prepare for the day when truth alone is not enough. That day is coming, the generals nodded. They all felt the same shadow approaching. General Soren leaned forward. Captain Vance, your crew has seen the enemy's hand in this. You will continue your work. Find the proof we need. But remember, if they attempt to silence you again, do not fall quietly. Fight back. Let them know humans do not bend. Arya gave a sharp nod. I understand. Preparation spread quietly across Earth and its colonies. In the shipyards orbiting Mars, massive frames of warships floated like skeletons waiting to be filled. Engineers worked day and night, welding armor, installing weapons, and building engines faster than ever before. The newest class of battleships, called the Aegis class, was designed to survive heavy fire and still strike back. On the colonies, militias trained with new weapons. Young men and women drilled in dusty yards, their voices raised as they shouted human chants of unity. They knew war might be far away, but they also knew it might arrive at their doorsteps. Factories produced supplies from starfighter engines to plasma rifles. Everything was stored in hidden vaults or shipped to supply bases scattered across human space. Even in universities, students and scientists worked together, creating advanced navigation systems, faster shields, and weapons that could adapt in battle. Humanity's greatest strength was that every mind, every hand, every heart could become part of its defense. Meanwhile, Captain Aria returned to the stars aboard the Resolute. Her mission was dangerous: to find more evidence, to uncover the full conspiracy, and to protect her ship from threats that would surely come. Lieutenant Darius Cole stood at her side on the bridge. The young officer's face was serious, but there was fire in his eyes. "Captain," he said quietly, "we are being followed again." Aria looked at the screen. Behind them, far in the distance, was a faint signal, an unknown ship moving carefully, always keeping its distance. "They are watching us," Aria said. Her voice carried no fear, only calm resolve. "Let them. If they want to know what humans are planning, they will see more than they expect." The Resolute changed course, heading toward the outer edge of Council space. There, in hidden corners, lived smugglers, traders, and species who distrusted the great empires. They were the kind of people who whispered truths when no one else dared. On one such station, in the shadow of a red dwarf star, Aria met a contact. He was a merchant from the Caril species with long limbs and golden eyes. He looked nervous, glancing around before he spoke. "I should not be here," he whispered. "If the Council knew I was speaking to humans, I would be erased." "Then why risk it?" Aria asked. "Because I saw the shipment," he said. His golden eyes gleamed with fear. "I worked as a dockhand for the Zerathi Empire. Weeks before your leader was killed, crates arrived. Rifles, targeting systems, stealth equipment. All marked as restricted Council security supplies. They vanished quickly, loaded onto ships without records." "And then Monroe was assassinated," Aria said. The alien nodded. "It was not the act of one being. It was a mission, planned, protected. And when you humans began asking questions, they began planning something else." "What do you mean?" Aria pressed. The merchant leaned closer. "You must be careful, human. The Council speaks of peace, but in their shadows they sharpen their blades. They do not want you to rise. They want you broken before you stand too tall." Before Aria could ask more, the merchant slipped away, disappearing into the crowded station. Back on the Resolute, Aria told her officers what she had learned. The room was tense. "They are preparing against us," Darius said. "They are not waiting for war. They are planning it." Aria nodded. "Yes, and that means we must be faster. We must be smarter. They underestimate us. That will be their mistake." While the Resolute searched for more proof, the situation on Earth grew more unstable. Protest grew larger. Citizens demanded answers. Some carried signs with Monroe's face. Others carried the flag of Earth, shouting, "Justice for humanity." The government tried to keep order, but anger spread. People had seen enough lies. They wanted truth. And behind the anger was unity. For the first time in centuries, humans of every nation, every culture, looked to the stars with the same determination. "They killed our leader," one speaker shouted during a broadcast, "and they think fear will silence us. But fear does not rule humans. Hope rules humans. Wrath rules humans. We will not kneel." The crowd roared, and the sound spread across Earth like thunder. In the council chambers far from Earth, alien leaders whispered among themselves. Some were nervous about humanity's growing strength. Others were pleased, believing war would crush the newcomers. But none could deny that humanity was not behaving as expected. Instead of hiding in grief, they were preparing quietly, steadily. One alien lord, his body covered in metallic scales, hissed to his allies, "The humans are dangerous. If they rise, they will not stop. Better to strike them now before their claws are sharp." But another, older and more cunning, replied, "Strike them too openly, and the galaxy will see the truth. No, let us weaken them slowly. Let them bleed before they roar." The conspirators thought themselves clever. They did not yet understand that humans did not need centuries to change. They only needed one spark. On the Resolute, Aria stood at the window of her quarters, staring into the endless stars. Her thoughts were heavy, but her spirit was steady. She remembered Monroe's words at the council before his death. Humanity will stand with the galaxy, and the galaxy will stand with humanity. The galaxy had betrayed those words, but humanity still believed them. And if the galaxy refused to stand with humans, then humans would make the galaxy listen. Darius entered the room quietly. "Captain, we've received a message from Earth. The Defense Council wants you to return with your findings. They say the time for waiting is almost over." Arya turned, her eyes sharp. "Then the storm is near." She looked once more at the stars. Somewhere out there, powerful empires believed they had silenced humanity with one shot, but they had only awakened something greater. Wrath was waiting, and when it arrived, the galaxy would never forget. The skies above Earth were no longer filled with peace. They were filled with preparation. Months had passed since President Monroe's assassination, and the whispers of conspiracy had become more than whispers. Captain Arya Vance and her crew of the Resolute had uncovered secret shipments of Council weapons, coded messages between powerful empires, and warnings from fearful aliens who dared to speak the truth. All the signs pointed to the same conclusion. Monroe had been murdered not by one extremist, but by the will of ancient powers who feared humanity's rise. The Galactic Council had dismissed Earth's protests, urging silence and patience. But humanity had waited long enough. The time for patience was over. Now deep beneath the oceans and high above in orbit, Earth's fleets were gathering. Warships, once few and scattered, now numbered in the hundreds. Fighters swarmed through training runs like flocks of metal birds. Engineers tested new weapons that had never before been seen in battle. In every colony, from the icy mines of Europa to the green plains of New Eden, citizens sent supplies, materials, and recruits. Humanity was uniting as it had never done before. For the first time in history, all of Earth spoke with one voice, and that voice was wrath. In the War Command Center beneath Geneva, the Defense Council stood before a massive holographic map. Lines of light showed fleets moving across space. Small red marks glowed where alien ships had been detected near human borders. Admiral Vega, dressed in his crisp black uniform, pointed at the map. "They are testing us." Small patrols shadowing our convoys, probing our colonies. They believe they can intimidate us into submission. General Soren's voice was hard. "Then they are wrong. If they strike once more, we will not defend. We will advance." The room turned to Captain Arya Vance, who stood silently at the side. She had just returned from the Resolute, bringing her findings. Her eyes were steady, her voice calm but sharp. "The time has come," she said. "We have proof." The assassin's weapon was council-issued. The orders came from the highest seats of the three oldest empires. They struck first. If we wait longer, they will strike again. Humanity cannot live in fear. Silence followed her words. Everyone in the room knew the truth. Humanity had reached the edge of choice. Either they would bow forever or they would rise. Finally, Admiral Vega spoke. "Then we rise," the order spread across the fleets. Engines roared, weapons locked, and warships turned toward the heart of Council space. The news reached colonies in waves of light-speed communication. On Mars, miners left their drills and gathered to watch the skies, cheering as battleships left orbit. On Titan, children drew pictures of warships with human flags flying proud. On Earth, crowds filled the streets, chanting Monroe's name and waving banners that declared, "Justice for humanity." The galaxy had not yet seen what humans could do when united. It was about to learn. The Resolute led the vanguard fleet. Arya stood on the bridge as the stars stretched before them, her officers tense but ready. Lieutenant Darius Cole sat at his station, his eyes locked on the navigation screen. "Captain," he said, "our first target is the blockade at Vega Gate. Council fleets are already moving to stop us." Arya nodded. "Then we show them what it means to face humans." Her voice carried through the ship's intercom. "Crew of the Resolute, today we carry the fire of Earth. We fight not for conquest but for justice. They struck us first. We will show them they cannot silence us. Stand firm, stand proud, for Earth and for Monroe." The crew roared their reply. The first battle began at Vega Gate, a massive wormhole hub used to control access to human space. Waiting there was a fleet of council ships, sleek silver vessels belonging to the ancient Zorathi Empire. Their commander sent a single message: "Turn back, humans. You are not authorized to pass." Arya's reply was short: "Justice does not ask for permission." The battle began. The Council ships opened fire with beams of pure energy, slicing through the darkness. Human ships responded with missiles, railguns, and plasma bursts. The Resolute surged forward, shields flaring as enemy fire struck. But humanity had prepared well. Their ships shifted formations quickly, adapting to enemy tactics in ways alien fleets did not expect. Where the Zorathi relied on tradition and rigid commands, humans improvised. They feigned retreat, then struck from the sides. They launched decoys to confuse targeting systems. They overloaded reactors to power weapons far beyond safe limits, turning desperation into strength. The battle burned bright. One by one, Council ships exploded, their wreckage drifting into the void. The Vega Gate, once locked against humans, was theirs. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived. Word spread quickly across the galaxy. News broadcasts showed footage of human ships fighting with ferocity and precision. Commentators argued in shock. No species has ever defied the Council so openly, one alien anchor declared. The humans are reckless, but they are not weak. On oppressed worlds where small species had long lived under the shadow of greater empires, hope stirred. If humans could fight back, maybe they too could rise. In the halls of the Council, panic grew. The three empires who had ordered Monroe's death met in secret chambers. Their voices hissed and growled. They were supposed to grieve, one said. They were supposed to kneel, another agreed. Instead, humans were marching toward their gates. The second battle came near the trade routes of the Zarine cluster. Here the Council had sent 2 fleets, believing numbers alone would crush the humans. Arya studied the map on her bridge. They outnumber us 3-1, Darius said grimly. Arya's eyes shone with determination. Then they will fall 3 times as hard. The battle began. Human ships darted among asteroids, using the field as cover. They split into small groups, striking at supply ships and communication relays first. Without orders, the enemy fleets grew confused. Then the Resolute led a sudden charge, cutting straight through the heart of the enemy formation. Missiles screamed across the void. Railguns tore holes in armor, and human fighters swarmed like angry hornets. By the time the battle ended, wreckage filled the asteroid field. The Council fleets retreated, leaving humanity in control of the cluster. On Earth, cheers shook the cities as the news arrived. People danced in the streets, waving flags. Children shouted Monroe's name. But in the hearts of humanity's leaders, the victory carried a warning. The Council would not remain passive forever. Their wrath was coming. General Soren looked at the reports with grim eyes. They will throw everything they have at us now. Admiral Vega nodded. Then we will meet them. We did not ask for this war, but we will finish it. The galaxy trembled. Some species began to secretly send support to Earth. Supplies, information, even volunteers. They were small, scattered peoples who had suffered under the same empires that had struck Monroe down. To them, humanity was not reckless. Humanity was hope. Arya met one such group in the shadows of a barren moon. A delegation of the Silari, a peaceful species with luminous skin, bowed before her. We have no fleets, their leader said. But we have voices. We will tell others what you fight for. We will show them the truth, that humans do not fight for conquest but for justice. Arya accepted their pledge with respect. Every ally mattered, no matter how small. Humanity was no longer alone. But the Council empires were not idle. They gathered their fleets, armadas that stretched across systems, ships older and larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their leaders swore they would crush the human rebellion, erase their fleets and burn their colonies. The galaxy watched, holding its breath. Back on the Resolute, Arya stood at the window of her quarters, gazing at the stars. She knew the greatest battle was yet to come. She could feel it in her bones, like a storm gathering on the horizon. They wanted us silent, she whispered to herself. Instead, they will hear us louder than ever. The door opened and Darius stepped inside. Captain, orders from Earth, the final push is coming. We march on Council space itself. Arya turned, her eyes blazing with resolve. Then humanity arrives in force. The fleets gathered, hundreds of human ships united. Their engines glowed like stars, their weapons charged. The galaxy had never seen such determination in a young species. And as they moved forward, one thought echoed through every ship, every heart, every soul. This was not just war, this was justice, this was humanity's arrival. The stars never looked brighter than they did on the eve of humanity's greatest march. For months, Human fleets had fought through blockade after blockade, turning defeat into victory, weakness into strength, and fear into fury. The galaxy had thought humans were too young, too unprepared, too fragile to rise. But Earth had answered with fire. Now, at the edge of Council space, the largest armada in human history waited. Warships filled the void, hundreds of steel titans, their hulls painted with the banners of Earth and her colonies. Fighters swarmed in careful patterns, engines burning blue like a storm of fireflies. In the heart of it all stood the Resolute, her hull scarred from battle but her spirit unbroken. Captain Arya Vance stood tall on her bridge, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. She knew what lay beyond. The Council's homeworlds, the very thrones of the empires that had ordered Monroe's death. Behind her, Lieutenant Darius Cole whispered the thought that was on every mind. This is it, the final war. Arya's voice was calm, but her heart carried the weight of humanity's rage. Not war, Lieutenant, justice. In the command chambers of Earth, Admiral Vega gave the final order. His voice was steady, carrying across the fleet. Humans of Earth and the colonies. Today we write the end of fear. They took our leader. They mocked our voice. They believed we would kneel. But we rise. Remember President Monroe. Remember every insult, every wound. Today humanity arrives not as prey, but as power. This is not the age of silence. This is the age of wrath. The reply came not in words, but in the roar of thousands of human voices shouting through ships, comms, and broadcasts. A storm of resolve swept across the fleet. The march began. The human armada crossed into Council space where no outsider had dared to tread. Ahead, waiting like a wall of steel, stood the combined fleets of the three ancient empires. Their ships were vast, forged in traditions older than humanity's first fire. Their commanders believed this battle would end the rebellion, crushing the humans before their defiance spread. The alien fleet sent one last warning. You stand against the Council. This is your final chance. Surrender or be erased. Arya stepped forward on the Resolute's bridge and sent the reply that carried across every channel. We are humanity. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight. And with that, the last war began. The first clash was like thunder across the stars. Alien dreadnoughts unleashed beams of destructive energy, tearing through the void. Their weapons were ancient, refined through centuries of rule. But the humans had prepared. Human warships moved in patterns the Council had never seen, fast, unpredictable, improvising with every strike. Fighters weaved between massive ships, dropping torpedoes into weak points. Missile swarms lit the dark like storms of fire. Railguns roared, cracking enemy armor apart. The Resolute surged forward, shields glowing as enemy fire hammered against them. Arya stood unflinching, commanding her crew with precision. Shift to Delta formation. Target their flagships. Break their chain of command. One by one, alien cruisers fell. Massive ships that had ruled the stars for centuries now burned in silence, their wreckage drifting across the battlefield. But the Council would not fall easily. Their commanders ordered a desperate maneuver. Colossal carriers launched waves of drones, machines designed to overwhelm by sheer numbers. Thousands of small crafts rushed toward the humans, a tide of steel and flame. The humans answered with fury. Darius shouted, "Release the drones!" From human carriers, swarms of their own machines burst forth. New designs built from Earth's creativity and daring. Unlike the Council's rigid drones, the human ones learned, adapted, and shifted tactics mid-battle. Within minutes, the tide turned. The alien drones fell apart, broken by speed and clever strategy. For the first time in history, the Council fleets wavered. On planets across the galaxy, billions watched the battle unfold in broadcasts. Small species hidden under Council rule saw the impossible. The mighty empires being challenged by humans. A species barely out of their cradle. Whispers spread. If the humans can stand, maybe we can stand too. Hope began to ignite in places long buried under fear. The battle raged on for hours. Human ships pushed deeper, closer to the Council capital. But the enemy still had one last card. From the shadows of a gas giant, three massive war behemoths emerged. They were older than human civilization itself, ships of legend spoken of in fear. Each was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons powerful enough to crack planets. The Council commanders sent one final taunt. Your courage ends here. These are the titans of our rule. No one has ever stood against them. The humans did not retreat. Admiral Vega's voice came through the fleet. Then today, history changes. The fight against the Titans was like nothing the humans had faced before. Their shields were nearly impenetrable, their cannons capable of tearing fleets apart with a single strike. But humans were not fighting with fear. They were fighting with wrath, with memory, with unity. Arya ordered the Resolute into a dangerous dive toward one of the Titans. "Bring us close. Aim for their reactor vents. Captain, that's suicide," Darius warned. Arya's eyes burned with determination. "Not if we fly like humans." The Resolute darted between the Titan's massive cannons, weaving in and out of fire that could have ended them in seconds. Human fighters followed, striking the weak points of the giant ship. Explosions rocked its hull. Finally, a human missile found its mark, ripping into the reactor. The Titan went silent, breaking apart in a storm of fire. The fleet cheered, hope spreading like wildfire. 2 Titans remained. The humans swarmed them, sacrificing ships, pushing beyond limits. It was costly. Ships burned, names were lost, but humanity refused to yield. Piece by piece, strike by strike, the Titans fell. When the last of the ancient giants exploded into silence, the galaxy itself seemed to tremble. The path to the Council homeworld was open. The human fleet surrounded the capital planet, a jewel of shining towers and endless wealth built upon centuries of domination. For the first time in history, it stood vulnerable. The Council sent a final plea. "You have proved your strength. Leave now, and we will grant you a place among us." Arya stood before the transmission, her voice sharp as steel. "We do not ask for places. We make them." The fleets descended. Human soldiers landed on the surface, walking through streets that had never known fear. The Council guards, once feared across the stars, lowered their weapons and surrendered. The empires that had ruled for ages had been broken, not by numbers but by the will of a species too stubborn to kneel. The great trial began in the shattered Council chambers. The rulers who had ordered Monroe's death were brought before humanity and the watching galaxy. Their voices, once commanding, were now desperate. "We only acted to protect order. Humanity was dangerous." Admiral Vega stood tall. "You feared our rise, so you killed our leader. That is not order. That is tyranny." Captain Arya's voice carried across the chamber, across every broadcast. "You thought we were too small, too divided, too weak to matter. But we matter. We are humanity. And today justice is served." The galaxy watched as the Council's power was stripped away. The assassins of Monroe were judged, not with cruelty, but with law. Humanity had come for wrath, but they left something greater, a new order. Weeks passed. A new council was formed, not of empires alone, but of many species, large and small. For the first time, the galaxy heard voices that had long been silent. Humanity sat among them, not as servants, but as equals. The scars of war were many. Ships lay broken in orbit. Names were mourned. But Earth had not fought for nothing. On a quiet evening, Arya stood once more at the window of the Resolute. Darius joined her, his voice thoughtful. "Do you think Monroe would have wanted this war?" Arya was silent for a moment, then answered softly. "He wanted peace. But peace cannot be built on fear. Now the galaxy knows who we are. Humanity does not bow. Humanity builds." She looked at the stars. No longer distant strangers, but paths waiting to be walked. This is not the end. This is the beginning. On Earth, crowds gathered once more in the streets, but this time not with grief, not with anger. They gathered with pride. They had faced the oldest powers of the galaxy and stood victorious. Children looked up at the skies and saw not just stars, but futures waiting to be made. Scientists spoke of new alliances, new knowledge to share. Builders dreamed of stations and cities that would shine across systems. Humanity had entered the galaxy in wrath, but they remained to shape it with strength. The galaxy would remember.